We continue to tell you everything about the Raiders now. They play hard. We know that. You know that. There's no quitting this team.
I mean, he's just been showing up each and every week for us, each and every week. And sometimes it's not the most glamorous stats, but it's all the little things he's doing well.
I love it when guys take full advantage of their opportunities. Chason is doing just that.
This guy, when you watch him play, he's a football player. Where they're able to put him on the field, it just makes him limitless.
Welcome to Raiders Rundown, Holiday Edition. I'm JT. Congratulations to the entire Raider organization as they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sunday. The 10-game losing streak has come to an end, and now the Raiders get set to play in New Orleans this upcoming Sunday here. And for a lot of fans, that's a win. And we celebrate wins around here, and the Raiders won a game against a team I think they should have beat. We talked about it all last week, and we'll preview New Orleans a little bit later on in the show. But when a team wins a game, if you watched any of the Raiders' social media immediately following the game, from Brock Bowers to the owner Mark Davis to the head coach Antonio Pierce, Amir Abdullah, everybody in that locker room had a big smile because no one wants to lose. Just win, baby, commitment to excellence, the will to win. And that's what happens when you're a professional sports team. No matter what the fans want, you're going to go out and win. And these fans wanted to win. I was at the game yesterday in my seats and up in the booth, and there was a celebration for Raider fans who don't want to lose. They want to win. Clearly ramifications with the draft pick. We're aware of that, and we'll march on and deal with that in March and April. But as of now, the Raiders have a little bit of momentum. They played a very solid football game, which is really what we've been asking for over the last couple of months. They won the turnover battle. They had Jacksonville turn it over twice. They didn't turn it over. They played a clean game. Brock Bowers was fantastic. But I think if you're watching on the YouTube channel, if you're seeing some of the video on radio, I'll tell you what we're seeing. We're just seeing an offensive line pushing, Isaiah Palomal knocking balls out, and we're seeing a pass rush and a team that wanted to win this game. And the way that they swarmed to the football, played the opponent physical, and wanted to win that game in the fourth quarter, that's what they've been doing all year. The problem is they lost 10 games in a row after being 2-2. Every game they showed tremendous effort. Every game they wanted to win. Most of the games, the majority of the 10 losses in a row, they were in them. They either had the lead early or they came back in the fourth quarter on the backside there, but the results are all that matters. No one is happy with the results of this season, with the record of the team, but everybody in the organization, I've been here all day, is pretty happy about getting a win because you're a professional business. You're a football team. You got football staff. You have business staff, and they want to win. And they want to come into the holidays, and the Raiders got an early Christmas present with the win. You know, I want to just share this story quickly before we get to Lincoln Kennedy. Yesterday, as I got there early and I parked, I kind of do a circle around Allegiant Stadium. I like to tailgate a bit. And I met a young boy named Romeo, who's 6 years old, 5 or 6 years old, and he had a sign that said it's his first game and he wanted to win. So his dad knew me, and I talked to him and took a photo with him and tweeted it out on X at JT the Brick. And I said when I walked into the building, that's what it's about. It's about a kid attending his first game. It's about, unfortunately, a fan maybe attending their last game. And they want to win. And that's what this is all about. So yesterday, it was a festive atmosphere, great entertainment as always. The team showed up. We had the Brock Bowers story as he was going to have this unbelievable game where he had all those targets and played well and is now very close to breaking the all-time yardage record for a rookie tight end, the reception record, and that was good. That's what we wanted to see. A couple of really solid individual performances, but as the owner, Mark Davis, talked to me before on the sidelines before the game, it's about winning games. Records are important. Records come and go, but winning games is what matters, and the Raiders put up a fight. And they won that game. And Jacksonville put up a fight, too. They got a couple of good players on that team. They're not going to need a quarterback, I don't think, in the draft. You never know with Trevor Lawrence. Never know what's going to happen. But for the Raiders yesterday, you could just see after the game how happy Aiden O'Connell was to get a victory because he gets evaluated by wins and losses. To see the play of the defense, Trayvon Merrick, and how excited he was in the locker room. I mean, no one could slow down Divine Diablo. He was happy about the win. And how about Jackson Powers-Johnson and DJ Glaze and that young offensive lineman that don't want to lose 13 or 12 in a row. They were done at 10. They were done at 10, and they wanted to win the game. So there's a lot of chatter out there, and from time to time, things don't work out the way you want. But the draft, we start getting the draft coverage going with the combine. We do that in the offseason after the Super Bowl. And the teams that advance in the playoffs, they're going to get a lot of coverage. But the Raiders are going to get a high draft pick no matter what. They're going to get a high draft pick in every round. They'll have the ability to trade up, trade back, and spend a lot of money and improve the football team in the offseason. But a win was really a priority yesterday, and the Raiders took advantage of the opportunity they had against the Jaguars. We bring in the great Lincoln Kennedy, who was on the call with Jason Horowitz. And Link, we talked before and during games and after games, and it was an interesting environment. It was a holiday environment for the Raiders. One team was going to win that game, and the Raiders acted like they wanted it more in the fourth quarter.
Wouldn't it be something if it went down in a tie? That would definitely be funny. But you know what? Here's the thing. It was good for the Raiders to get a win. Look, I'm like you in many respects. I've been on the fence all season about how do we pursue. And as a former player, I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even fathom if I heard from a coaching staff or anybody, administrators, that we're trying to lose this game or we're trying to tank, this season for a better draft choice. It doesn't go down like that. So with that being said, I'm glad the Raiders were able to end the losing streak. More importantly, I was glad they were able to get a win. I think, not only players, but this entire team, the coaching staff and everyone in general deserve this. This has been a very long, hard year. And of course, the expectations coming in. No one ever starts a season, JT, and says, well, we want to lose, more games than we win. You often, especially in football, every fan base I've ever known, when the draft comes out, when the season comes out, they all have the aspirations of chasing that championship. We have, whether you look at it as an advantage or a disadvantage, we have to look up at the Kansas City Chiefs hailing up those championship trophies year after year. And that's unfortunate for us because they're in our division and we can't do anything about it other than, try. So I was glad to see the Raiders get a win.
Same here, Lincoln. I want to start with Bowers, the 11 receptions, 99 yards. What did you see this time? Because you've talked with us about the bracket coverage and the best corner is now sliding over. He lines up wide in the slot, lines up as a traditional tight end, and it's important that he got his touches and targets in the game. What was different about this performance for Brock?
Well, I think it was a conscious effort to get him the football. Now, I'm not saying it hasn't been that way before, but the thing is that Aiden O'Connell in this past game read the coverages. And when he saw that he had one-on-one coverage or when he was going to have man coverage, they knew they had a two-route combination between a receiver or someone else to try to make some sort of distraction on the defender of Brock Bowers. That gave him a step, and you don't need more. The guy has such an unbelievable catch radius. I am very impressed with this young man. He's not like a tight end. He's more like a receiver. And then, those are unicorns. Those are rarities, if you know what I mean, JT. Mm-hmm. You don't have that all the time. But I like the fact that Scott Turner and this offensive staff have made an effort to find a way to get Brock Bowers the football. And the thing is that Aiden O'Connell is being smart. There's been times where he forced it. We've seen that in the past. We've seen it most notably the last game when there was an interception on an overthrow. But this time it was a good job by them to get him the football and to make him relevant as he really is every week.
You know what I think, Lincoln, after watching him play every game, when he gets to this yardage record, it's not just the catch radius. It's how he gets the extra 1.5 yards, 2 yards, either going out of bounds or not going out of bounds. That's what adds up when you get over 1,000 yards, and he's going to break Mike Ditka's record. It's not he's getting the ball and going down or getting the ball and immediately going out of bounds. He's getting that extra 2 yards. I love when a player falls forward. Running backs are supposed to do that when they get clipped and fall forward, get an extra yard or two. But also tight ends and wide receivers can do that, and some are better than others. I think that's what makes Brock Bowers so special.
I think it's a combination of that and a little bit more. Brock Bowers has that uncanny attitude about getting free and knowing how to get open. And to me, that's big. There are very few receivers that know how to do that. They know how to find holes in zones. They know how to escape from man. And the great thing about Brock Bowers, in my opinion, is the fact that you're able to separate him. Can't cover him with a linebacker. If you cover him with a safety, the chances are they're probably going to be shorter, so you can throw the 50-50 ball up higher or the back shoulder throw. Or more importantly, he finds a way to pull away when he has a little bit of an inch of room, and then the quarterbacks are capable of throwing him open. That comes from an accurate quarterback. So I've seen a lot of things that I really like from this young man. I think he has a very promising career ahead of him.
Lincoln Kennedy's our guest. Let's get to Aiden O'Connell and his performance. Didn't have a touchdown in the game, but he didn't turn it over. And how about his mobility outside the pocket? Antonio Pierce had a lot of fun with that. After the game, game at the stadium and talking about it earlier today. Just keep in the pocket, move, and make a play. You have to do that, Lincoln, in the NFL. You're not going to be a starter in the NFL if you're just a statue back there. And he's got a big arm, but, man, I love this footwork in this game. And as we're showing, him escaping a big play here that looked like a sack, he was able to find Abdullah on one of the biggest plays of the game. I liked his mobility more than I've ever seen it in that game.
I honestly think that play right there is a game winner for them. I don't think the Raiders find a way to win this game if they don't find a way to make that play and then continue that drive and get points out of that drive. So big play out of him. And look, I do believe in today's game, quarterbacks have to be somewhat mobile. I'm not saying they have to be Michael Vick or anything like that. I'm saying they have to be mobile because there are going to be times you're going to have to extend the play with your legs, and that's rightfully so. That was a very big play. I'm not necessarily saying Aiden O'Connell was mobile, but he has a way of being able to move around, so good for him.
Yeah, you don't have to be Lamar Jackson, as you mentioned Michael Vick, but when you play in a division that has Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and Bo Nix, we're seeing Bo Nix do that. You got to show some mobility. Yeah. You got to extend the pocket, and that was really important. But, Lincoln, you preached this. It's about ball protection, and he's been sacked a bunch, and there's been a lot of pressures on him, and he was smart enough to make good decisions protecting the football. I don't think the Raiders win this game if they turn it over once, and they didn't have a turnover in the game. They turned it over twice. So that was important to him. Even though he didn't throw a touchdown there, he didn't turn it over. I think that's a building block for this offensive line. Scott and Norv Turner and everybody involved, they played a clean football game.
I agree with you. I think they played, in my opinion, somewhat of a clean football game, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I will say this, just a little added caveat. I am not happy with the way the refs are not protecting Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell has taken many shots after the ball is gone.
Good point.
And we've seen time and time again, watching a lot of football, how more refs overprotect other quarterbacks. Every time they get breathed on, there's a flag. And Aiden was pushed down. He was hit. He was harassed on the top. There's a strike zone on the quarterback, ladies and gentlemen. It's from the shoulder pads down to the waist. Anything low is a penalty. Anything high is a penalty. And there were times Aiden took pushes down from the back, took pushes from other guys, and it wasn't called. With that being said, I'm not happy with the way that's been officiated, especially with him. He's a young quarterback, but yes, give him the respect that he's due. He's a quarterback in the league. You protect other ones, so you should do that. I made my peace with that one.
Yeah, I'm happy you're bringing that up. No, I'm happy you're bringing that up. That's really a big, important part of what's happening because in this league with flags at quarterbacks, and some get more than others, Raider Nation wants to know what's going on with Aiden O'Connell. Gardner Minshew took a beating this year and was hit late too, but Aiden, no doubt about that. Lincoln, the second leading Vegas receiver in Week 16 was Amir Abdullah. 5 receptions, 47 yards. The long was 12. On top of 38 yards on the ground on 7 carries. This is a guy above the age of 30, keeps his body perfect, is always just thinking about nutrition, working out, running cardio. And that's how he's in the league. And I didn't even mention special teams. I'm talking about him as a receiver and what he does on the ground. He's a complete football player.
When you talk about this running room and how it's the running back room, how it's been affected by injuries, miscues, just inefficient play, however you want to look at it, it's a pretty big room. And in the sense, and not necessarily big in the numbers, but you talk about the names, the possibilities with Madison, Abdullah, Sincere McCormick coming on, and we also know where Zeus has been, Zamir White. So it's a number of guys. And here's the thing. There are times you have to make adjustments. I've always been big on adjustments, JT. You know that. When you have different guys do different things. No two receivers are going to run the same post route the same way every time. Same thing can be said about the running backs running the football. And I just appreciate the fact when guys take advantage of their opportunities. We saw Sincere McCormick do it. We also saw, as you're talking about Amir Abdullah in this past game do it. That's great. And to me, that's a reward for not only players, it's a reward for the coaching staff because you put them in a position to succeed. When guys go in, you have to understand who they are, what type of carries they do best. And you have to know that in the back of your mind. More importantly, with your offensive line ever changing because of the injuries, you have to know what guys that block those plays best and how they block that. So all those are part of intangibles in coaching and coming together as a team.
Let's move on to the Saints where they don't have a really good pass rush overall. 7.3 yards per pass attempt. And here's a number that jumps out, Link. 242 yards passing allowed per game. That's 28th in the league. So the Raiders win a game Are they going to win another game? They match up well against New Orleans, just like Jacksonville, and we don't know what the Chargers are going to do in the last game. We'll get to that next week, but this is a defense in New Orleans that gives up the pass. And I think the Raiders having some momentum with Bowers, Abdullah, as we talked about. And I didn't get to Jacoby Myers. I think spreading out the Saints and going 3 or 4 wide is going to make a difference in this one.
I don't know if we're a bit. I know that you say they don't have the high numbers of sack, but they still have internal pressures that I've seen so far on film. I still have a few things to look at. But I will say this: one of the things we have to shore up for the Raiders, you have to shore up the internal part of that pocket. The pocket is collapsing too fast. And when you don't have a mobile quarterback, and because your tackles are exposed, it's hard to really for the quarterbacks to seep out the outside corners. They have to really push up the pocket. So you have to secure the pocket. You're showing a highlight right now where you talk about the interior of the pocket being secure, and the quarterback's able to have success because he's able to survey down the field. I have seen in the past 3 games number of opportunities for the Raiders to be able to strike downfield. However, the internal pressure has collapsed the pocket, forcing Aiden O'Connell to take his look off the middle of the field. Can't really stretch the ball out there. That limits you, JT, because it only puts you on the outside of hashes of where you can go to with passes. And that's half the field. So you got to find a way to secure the internal part of that cup, that protection, to allow Aiden O'Connell to survey the middle of the field to strike there.
Yeah, you've been real honest with this offensive line, and I know you do individual breakouts and you look at the tape of this interior and exterior offensive line. I guess a better game against Jacksonville. Jacksonville's got a couple of good edge rushers, and overall,
yes,
I think that the grade will be better this week for the Raiders' offensive line. Jackson Powers-Johnson comes out and he's throwing kisses to the fans as he's coming through with Max, for the warm-ups here. I love his energy.
Certainly.
DJ Glaze, Colton Miller. Andre James has been sitting on the sideline, but he was called into action overall. So I thought we saw a good, solid effort from the Raiders' O-line.
Just take away those miscues, the penalties. That's what you got to do. I mean, the thing is that when you're a team that's struggling, I believe you have to play damn near perfect. And it's almost impossible to say a perfect game. Everybody has bad plays. Everyone's going to have bad series here and there. Everyone's going to have a bad game. The part about being a pro is limiting those mistakes, limiting those miscues, and hurting your team. And that's where we have to see the growth of this team. There's going to be times where you, as an offensive lineman, got to go, you know what? I got to go doing everything perfect. I got to make sure every block is perfect. I got to get everything done. Can't have any missed assignments. It starts up here. It finishes in here.
So the Saints' run defense here, as I take a look at what they have to do in this game, very important. The Raiders are down to their last running backs. I mean, Alexander Madison, it doesn't seem like he's going to be the featured back here. It looks like Amir Abdullah is the guy that they're going to after Sincere McCormick, after Zamir White. I mean, you look at this team and what they're dealing with, the running back injuries here. I think they're going to try to run it. And Coach Pierce wants to start a game off physically running the ball.
Right.
If it works, you stay with it. If it doesn't work,
certainly,
you start getting it to Brock earlier and you start getting it to Jacoby. But I think this is going to be an important game as I look at the stats here of what this team is able to do. Look, I think the Raiders are going to come out and try to run it, and then play action if they can run it could be the difference in this game.
I agree with you, JT. And here's another step that I'm going to take with you is the fact that the New Orleans Saints are going to bring an 8th man in the box.
Okay.
And I have played with coaches where they said, you know what, sometimes the running back, you got to be your own blocker. But with that being said, in order to start success, you're going to have to bring in a receiver or somebody from the outside to sort of dig out that 8th man and allow the widest man to go free. With that also being said, Aiden O'Connell is going to have to read the end man on the line of scrimmage. A lot of times they'll take a strong safety or they'll put an outside linebacker there to have a free man rushing off the edge. And because we don't have a lot of, naked or boot action, there's not a lot of guys who respect that sort of action by the quarterback when he's faking like he's going to hand off the ball or handing off the ball and rolling out. So they don't really respect that yet. You've got to utilize that. So I would say this. I expect man blocking up front for the offensive line for the Raiders in order to attack this guy, to attack the New Orleans Saints. And I expect you to bring in a receiver, somebody from the outside that's been Jacoby Myers in the past, to dig out that safety or that extra man that's in the box and allow the widest man to go free. A lot of times the weakest tackling players on the team are cornerbacks on the outside in space. I'm not saying they're not good tacklers. I'm saying if you're talking about the more inferior tacklers, they're usually the corners. That's why most offenses like to leave them free to allow you to make them miss in space.
That's a good segue for Eric Allen coming up because he's next and he liked to tackle. Hey, Link, I mean, I know as of now, as we speak live with the Raiders here, that they went from maybe the 1 or 2 draft pick to 6. That's going to change. There's still 2 football games left for every team in this league, the teams that are struggling and the teams at the top trying to get to the playoffs. But I hope we can get away from it now. We're living in different times. A win is a win. You played at the highest level of this organization. I know it's going to have an effect on the draft selection, but this team needed a win. There's a lot of people walking around here who needed to be rewarded. The fans aren't in the weight room. They're not there watching these players get treatments and getting wrapped and deciding if they can play one more game or if they have to shut it down. Players need to feel good about their effort. And I'm not saying this was a classic Raider game, one of the great games of all time, but to end a losing streak, I was here, you remember too, as a broadcaster when Carr lost his first 10 games and the Raiders got a win. And the next thing you know, the Raiders developed into a really good team. Maybe we'll look back 2 years from now and say the Raiders stopped it at 10 instead of 12 or 13. And now the Raiders, a year or 2 from now, are playing for the playoffs and going deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember that time when they started off 0-10 because I believe the following game was against Kansas City in Oakland, right? When they were in a game and they beat them, and that was rewarding. It was refreshing. Look, I will say this, when it comes to the position, the draft position, you might be able to you might have to get creative if you're Tom Telesco and the Raiders when it comes to that time. And here's the good thing that I will say, the positive, because I've mulled this over my entire time after the game yesterday and after, going home, flying back home. How are we going to do this? What do you, because you and I, we talked extensively about it. I think the Raiders are in a unique position. One, because they have cap space, have draft collateral, and more importantly, you have a definite need. So, and the need comes up every year for every team. But because you have cap space and trade capital, you have options to where if you have to trade up, you might have to trade up. It might very well be, but you have that at your luxury. You're not hogtied by a salary cap, being in cap jeopardy or cap peril. So those are options for the Raiders. Going forward, I think they're going to be fine. And it's one of those awkward pills to swallow, if you will, because what do you want? Do you want your basis for the future, or do you want it right now? And as a former player, I can tell you, JT, and I've talked to you about it, I don't know any other way. I don't know how to go out there and not play to win because I hate it to lose. Yeah. And I know a lot of players in that locker room share the same sentiment. If you hate to lose, you're going to do your best to win. Don't give a damn about a draft choice now. I'm talking about the here and now.
Absolutely. Lincoln, have a great week. Merry Christmas to you, the boys, the whole family. Great seeing you out there. We'll talk to you next week.
Merry Christmas, Raider Nation. Go Raiders.
There he is. Merry Christmas from Lincoln Kennedy. Here's our lineup, and we're working throughout the holiday because the season goes through the holiday. The morning tailgate. Catch our morning show on our flagship station. And to Rich Eisen, I'm on weekdays noon to 2. Then Q Myers with Unnecessary Roughness, 2 to 5 p.m. Great to have Lincoln around. He puts all of our broadcasts in such a unique perspective because he was a multiple Pro Bowler. He won, played in a Super Bowl, and he understands what it's like to lose and how to stop a losing streak. So we really appreciate what Lincoln had to say. At the end of the game, I'm talking the last play of the game. I'm in the booth behind Jason Horowitz and Lincoln. I had my camera out, and I'm videoing them because it's a final play. I want to send it to those guys so they could have something to look back on in years to come. And everybody was excited, from our engineers to the interns, to the staff, to everybody who worked in the locker room after that game. The Raiders desperately needed a win. They got to win. Whatever happens in the future is going to happen. But take the win, enjoy the holiday, and remember, you're supposed to win every game. The ones you can't, you tip your cap to the opponent, but you try to come back the following week and win again. When we come back, a rare edition. My partner, Eric Allen, will join us, one of the greatest cornerbacks of all time. His countdown, hopefully, this year to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We're all pulling for EA. We'll get his analysis of the Raiders' defense when we return on Raiders Rundown.
It's game day, the day we've been waiting for. And this is more than just a game. It's a passion, a lifestyle. Here at the Raider Image, you're part of our team. Whether you're in the stands or cheering from home, we've got your back. Feel the confidence, own the game.
We are
the Raider Image. Your game, your gear. exclusively at the Raider Image.
Welcome back to Raiders Rundown. Look at this. I got my guy, EA, here. How awesome is this? And coming off a win, you've been preaching complimentary football. I thought it was really important. 2 turnovers for the Raiders, turning it over. They didn't have a turnover in the game. Yeah. We've been waiting to see that for a while.
Yeah, JT, as you know, we've been around football a long time, and one of the numbers that are so important are the turnovers, and that's kind of, if you have defensive players who can turn it over and then you have an offense that takes care of the football, you're going to be in most games and more than not have a chance to win the ball game. And I think the guys are really doing a good job of emphasizing, things in practice and then going to the game and doing those things. And that says to me that they're all still bought in to the coaching staff because, when you're at practice, you're just not running around tackling, you're emphasizing little details, punching the ball out, leverage on tackles, the proper tackling techniques. And when you look at the film, for the most part, right, this has been a difficult year, but for the most part, they are really sound in those areas outside of, us turning the ball over too much.
Let's start from the safeties on the way back up to the front. I thought they had tremendous games. Trayvon Merrick, we've been saying it all year, but Isaiah Palomal punching the ball out, his physical play. What do you see with him in the box and then when he jumps into coverage?
Yeah, I think he's a much better, more consistent player in the box than in the deep third or in man-to-man. And it's difficult. I think his first couple starts were really great because no one knows him, opposed to having a guy who, you have film on and everything like that. But, man, this last couple games, he has really popped in the middle of the football field, particularly, punching at balls, his tenacity, all those things you want from a safety, hard-hitting guy coming downhill and having the flexibility to be able to line up in different spots. I think he had a heck of a football game, really is taking advantage of his opportunities.
K'Lavon Chaisson had another big game there, too. I like this player, EA, because he's got a lot to prove. That was a team. He does. That was a team he came into the league with. He's trying to find his way on this team for the future. With everything that went down with this defensive line, Christian Wilkins on the interior, Max and Kuntz on the edges, he took advantage of his opportunity.
He did. This coaching staff on the defensive line is continuing to look at him and figure out ways that he can really utilize his abilities because he has a lot of ability. I think for him, he just had to have some alternative moves. Like you have your one special pass rush move, but you got to have something off that. We've seen that in bunches with him, and it's nothing better than playing your old team, JT, and then having a good game and then winning the football game for him. So K'Lavon has really showed some sparks, and he's another player that is in the middle of a job interview, and he is killing it right now.
Let's get to Brock Bowers. It's always exciting to talk about him. 13 targets, 11 reception, 99 yards. He's breaking records. I just love the targets for him overall, his energy. And what do you see once he catches the ball? The sideline's right there, but he can get an extra yard or two. What jumps off the tape?
Yeah, what you hear a lot in receiver rooms is when a receiver is on the sideline, you want to finish with physicality. That means not stepping out of bounds. If you're a tight end, if you're a running back, put that shoulder down, run through that defender just to kind of send a message, right? And afterwards, you saw Brock kind of shake his head like, yeah, I'm here. He's a focal point in this offense. And it's really difficult for any player at any level to be the focal point of either your offense or defense and continue to pay results, to continue to be the kind of player, from the first snap to the last snap, to execute and have an impact in a football game, and he's doing that. And it's really difficult, for a young player, particularly at the tight end spot where a quarterback has to get you the ball. The line has to protect. It's not like a running back where you can just kind of turn around and hand off. It's easier for him to dominate a game if he's that kind of player, but you have to get open. And I like the fact, if you look, a lot of times at the top of his route, when usually a tight end is just going to go left or right, he kind of pauses, gives a defender a little shake here or there with the shoulders, kind of trying to just play with his leverage a little bit, and then kind of gets out of the break, and he's still able to kind of explode out of his breaks, which one things that all receivers have to do if you're going to be successful, no matter if you're like a 4-3 guy, or you have to be able to separate at the top of your routes, and he's been able to do that.
Ryan Thomas Jr., 132 yards and a touchdown. LSU's got some receivers,
They
huh?
do. They
And
do.
what is going on here? We're talking
Man.
about a guy who's able to jump in and play at a very high level here. It's him and Brock for this Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he's making a case for it, too. Even though we have Brock and he's doing some things that are really unique, I thought Jacksonville found a great number one for the future.
They did. And receiver-wise, I'm not sure what they're feeding those guys down there, but those receivers are incredible. He has a great spark about him. He's not like a 4-2, 4-3 guy, but he's the kind of guy who's a really sound route runner, good hands. Obviously, the Jacksonville Jaguars are focusing on him. He's the focal point of their offense. And again, for a young player who's played some good football in college to come here at the end of the season, being able to be targeted over double-digit times and then give their team 10 catches, a touchdown, over 100 yards receiving against a defense, we're pretty good. You know, we can line up with the best of them at times. Just really love the fact that this young player is playing really hard and someone that they can count on at the end of the season.
I haven't asked you in a while about Tyree Wilson. 4 sacks on the year, 23 total tackles, 15 solo.
Yeah.
These next couple of games are really important.
They are.
Because he's going to have an opportunity to be isolated and get to the quarterback, knock balls down at the line of scrimmage. What have you seen from him lately?
What's going to be his game, JT? That's kind of what we're trying to figure out right now. Is he going to be able to be a close to 10-sack guy? Is he going to be the kind of guy who gets to the quarterback and gets his hands up and tips the ball away, so have some PBUs? Is he going to be the kind of guy who we can count on in the run game? This is really, really important for him. Is he going to be someone we can count on to pencil in as a starter, or is he kind of guy going to be a situational pass rusher? These next 2 games, really important to figure out what kind of future is going to be for him. I can't explain to you how important these next couple games are for him and how he has to prepare and practice, the things that he takes from the practice field to the game field. And he's going to have his chance right now because of Max and, of course, Kuntz are out.
All right, wrapping this up, you played for a little bit in New Orleans. What's it like to be a player down there during the week, knowing teams are coming in and fan bases are coming in to take over Bourbon Street? Everybody's got to do their job and play football. And I have many good memories going to Super Bowls there. Raiders won Super Bowl 15. They had iconic stories there. I was down there with Coach Gruden and Janikowski as he talked about that. And you look at this trip, it's a hotbed for Raider Nation. When New Orleans shows up on the schedule every few years, Raider fans go, that's a good spot for us to go on a road trip.
JT, it's different.
It is.
When you're playing down there and you're the team. The week before the games, you're getting multiple calls from all over the country from your friends waiting to come to Bourbon Street to come out and hang out. And, unfortunately, we were not in a good spot as far as the team-wise, so it was a struggle. We were multiple coaches and players and things like that, and the city is just really craving for a championship-caliber football team, and the fan base is a lot like the Raiders fan base, where they're going to come, they're going to support. But unlike the Raiders, there hasn't been those magical times where they're able to hoist up the Lombardi Trophy or go to those AFC Championship games or playing those iconic games for the National Football League. But the fan base is there. It's great. The experience, the day of the game is a great experience if you're coming in to watch it. And, of course, you're going to have your family and friends all talk about the restaurants and the eating and all of the sights down there. So hopefully Raider Nation gets to take a part, of the great food there, the great ambiance, and more importantly, come away with another win.
On a personal note, tell us about your Hall of Fame journey from a semifinalist. Where are we with the calendar? The Super Bowl's not too far away. What are you expecting to hear in the next couple of days?
Yeah, we should be hearing about that finalist group in the next couple of days. So I'm really excited. Hopefully, I'm in there where I was last year. It's still around this time, with the holidays, all the families around, and that's the talk. In the Allen household, it's hey, what do we hear? Are we closer yet? I've been getting a lot of encouraging messages and notes from some of the guys who are just outside the room, who know people who are voting. So as of now, I'm very, very excited and opportunistic, hopefully, about what's going to happen here coming up.
Well, I know your wife is big on Halloween, Thanksgiving, and then Christmas. So you got to have a budget down the end of the year for all these holidays with your kids and everything, right?
I walk in and just she has this space in the room where all the presents are, and one spot's for the granddaughter, Presley K, who is just the light of our lives, and she has a whole section over there, JT. She's
roped off, she's
like Max Crosby. She's over there. She got the roped off, but it's just a great time, and Lynn just kind of loves this time to really make sure everybody understands that everyone's loved in the Allen household, and whatever she can do to make everyone's holiday better, she's going to do that. So I'm lucky to have someone like that.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
Merry Christmas to you too, my friend.
You got it. There's the great Eric Allen as we continue here. A lot more to get to as the Raiders are coming off the win at Jacksonville, and we get ready for New Orleans. Always a fun trip as we continue on Raiders Rundown. We continue to tell you everything about the Raiders now. They play hard. We know that. You know that. There's no quitting this team.
I mean, he's just been showing up each and every week for us, each and every week. And sometimes it's not the most glamorous stats, but it's all the little things he's doing well.
I love it when guys take full advantage of their opportunities. Chase Hunt is doing just that.
This guy, when you watch him play, he's a football player. Where they're able to put him on the field, it just makes him limitless.
Raiders.com is your home for all things silver and black. Read Levi Edwards' analysis, Brock Bowers, Amir Abdullah, and the Raiders' defense in their win against the Jaguars. To stay up to date on all Raider news, visit Raiders.com/news. Vinny Bonsignore always joins us. We're thrilled to have him here, our Raider insider, and our teammate on the morning tailgate. So from the time you were there for warm-ups to the locker room after the victory, paint a big picture for us on what it was like.
Yeah, and obviously everybody hears the talk about draft and draft projections and everything like that. And I've tried to, tell my readers and listeners and there's no talk about that in that locker room amongst the coaches in the building here. They want to win. That's why they do this, as Antonio Pierce talked about this morning. They don't do this to lose. They do this to win. Everyone else can focus on all of that. And I think it speaks to their professionalism that they've been able to tune all of that out. It also speaks to where this team is in terms of their journey. You got a lot of young players. Going into Week 16, the Raiders had the most snaps, second most snaps, just behind the Rams, who had a really good draft class themselves, in terms of players, rookies playing snaps in the NFL. It's a very young team, and they've got their niches to create. They've got their careers to think about, their improvement, their development, and they've stuck with it in spite of some trying times. The Raiders, I give them a lot of credit for sticking with it, and I know that the win yesterday, might have rankled some people within the fan base. That's okay. Every fan has the right to cheer for whatever it is that they want to cheer with. But there was a lot of satisfaction for the Raiders finally kind of getting that monkey off their back. It had been since September 29th. Yeah. You think about that for a second. That's over 80 days since they were able to enjoy a victory, and knowing how hard these guys work and how much they actually care about this. It was a nice day for them.
Let's spotlight a few players and start off with Trayvon Merrick and his contract status, where he is in the league, how he's developed. And what do you think Antonio and Pierce, and especially Tom Telesco, think of him going forward?
Yeah, I know that Antonio Pierce, and he's spoken glowingly about Trayvon and his progress and progression and development, and in particular this year because, he was, not that he was second fiddle to Marcus Epps, but Marcus Epps was the general back there. And when Marcus Epps left, and it was very early in the season, it left kind of a leadership void at the back end of the Raiders' defense, and Trayvon Merrick has comfortably filled those shoes to the point where he's now, considered a leader of this defense. And aside from just the physical aspect of the game, and last night he had a nice game in run support, he had a nice game breaking up passes, but also the communication element has improved. And so for me, and when you start sizing up, who do the Raiders need to keep? And not that they want to move on from any of these guys, because a lot of the guys on the last year of their contracts here, Trayvon Merrick, Nate Hobbs, Robert Spillane, Divine Diablo, Malcolm Kuntz hadn't gotten a chance to get out there. But a lot of those guys are making strong cases or have made strong cases to stay, but it's hard to keep everybody. Trayvon Merrick is a guy that I would think is a pretty high priority for this team.
I would assume you'd think the same thing about Robert Spillane, but also other teams would be interested in a green dot, linebacker who's making plays here in the Raiders. He seems like he's a perfect fit for this team going forward. What have you seen with his play recently?
Yeah, it's not just even recently. It's just since day one. I remember the day that they brought him out in his opening press conference here. I remember looking around the room to some of my colleagues going, "Wow, okay." Impressive. Nobody had really known much about Robert Spillane, and that's no fault of his own. There was a logjam in Tennessee. There was a logjam in Pittsburgh. That wasn't that he wasn't good enough to be on the field, but they had some good players that were ahead of him. That's sometimes how it works. So he was sort of an unknown quantity, but from day one here, he's been really impressive, and it's just been the consistency that he's operated in, whether it's how he goes about his business, his play on the field, his leadership. It's just been kind of a revelation, and I don't see how the Raiders could let him leave this building. But it's a career that he's got to keep an eye on. Maybe he wants to go someplace that offers maybe a better chance to win. I don't know what it's all going to come down to, but it feels like he's a priority as well.
Vinny Bonsignore is our guest, our insider. So let's go through the future of the backups who are now starting on the defensive line. The young players, Tyree Wilson, taken 7 overall, Butler, what we've seen in the interior. On the edge there with Chason. I mean, there's a lot of guys here who are trying to make this roster next year by playing these final 3 games, counting the Jaguar game. How do you see that evolving going forward?
Yeah, for sure. And I think if there's one silver lining to the injuries that the Raiders have experienced, and in particular that defensive line, when you talk about Malcolm Kuntz and you talk about Christian Wilkins and obviously Max Crosby, it's created an opportunity for some of these younger players. And in Chason's case, a player that kind of got kicked to the curb by his previous team and was on a second chance and had to make the most of it, and he has. But when you're talking about, because coming into the season, depth was an issue, right? Yeah. All right, so behind Christian, behind Max, behind Malcolm Kuntz, what was it going to look like? Well, I think we've seen now what it looks like, and last night was kind of a revelation in itself. They're still able to get pressure on the quarterback and play well against the run as well, which is just as important. So if you're projecting to next year, and let's say the Raiders do bring back Malcolm Kuntz, and obviously Christian and Max are going to be back healthy, now you feel comfortable about the depth at defensive line, whereas coming into the season, maybe you weren't as much. So again, a silver lining, and you have to look for positives in a season like this, but certainly that's one of them.
With Brock's upcoming record of Mike Ditka surpassing him, first off, it tells you a lot about Mike Ditka and how great of a player he was.
That's crazy.
In an era where they were handing the ball off a lot more than now. And I know Coach well, and I'm sure he'd be very proud to see Brock Bowers break his record. But what's changed with him, Brock? Because I know what you're getting from him in the locker room, and it's just win, win, win. But from the B-roll that I saw, and you were there, he was really happy. Coming from that Georgia locker room where they didn't lose much, you saw a bigger smile on him yesterday.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, I got to give my father a credit. He used to always talk about Mike Ditka, and I never quite understood until now I'm putting all the numbers together. I'm like, oh, I guess he was pretty good.
Pretty good player.
From day one. And I think Brock Bowers, he may have experienced 3 losses at Georgia, and that might be on the high end. Mm-hmm. They won 2 national championships when he was there. Their losses were few and far between. So I can only imagine what it's like for a young player like that to have to kind of go through this sort of turbulence early in his career in terms of the wins and losses. Obviously, everything is happening on a big level for him on the field. He's been a stud, just flat out. But, having to still learn to grind through it, even in a season like this, I give him a lot of credit for staying with it, being a true professional, working on his craft, getting better, being a consistent, reliable go-to player. But I'm sure deep down, he never wants to go through a season like this. A lot of the guys are like that. I've talked to a few guys, Jackson Powers Johnson, DJ Glaze, about kind of going through this difficult season together as young players. And how, look, maybe get the bad out early on and never want to do that again. But the fact that they have guys that they can look at now and a shared experience of, look, we kind of all went through that together. We don't ever want that to happen again, but we learned from it, we grew from it, and maybe we're better off for it, that they were able to do it collectively. Because there's a lot of guys in that room. Look at Jackson Powers Johnson. You think he's lost a lot of games at Oregon? No. So this is all new to them, and I don't think it's anything that they ever want to be a part of again.
With less than a minute, give us something quick on what you're writing about the draft path, because you're a journalist, plus you do radio. I'm just a radio guy. When you look at all of this, it's not the end of the world overall. If you're 6, if you're 8, if you're 4, if you're 3, there's a lot of football left. A lot of changes are coming.
There's a lot of football left. There's a lot of different ways that this can turn out. But even if it did stay status quo, the Raiders are at number 6. You look at who's number 2 and number 3 now. It's the New England Patriots at number 2. The Jacksonville Jaguars are number 3. They both got their quarterbacks, right? So let's just say New England drafts Travis Hunter, the great Colorado player. And now Jacksonville at number 3 is like, well, we don't need a quarterback. Travis is off the board, got a whole bunch of holes to fill. Maybe it's in our best interest to trade down, collect some assets to fill a bunch of different holes, and let somebody who needs the quarterback come up. And as opposed to last year, where the Raiders were coming up from number 13 or trying to come up from number 13 into the top 3, which was never going to happen. Now they may be at 5 or 6, which is a much easier path, and maybe some teams that are more willing to deal down than the Patriots were, the Bears were, and the Washington Commanders were, because they needed quarterbacks last year as well. So not the end of the world, and there would be a path to move up as well.
Merry Christmas and enjoy New Orleans with your wife. She
Likewise.
hasn't seen it before. You're going to have a blast there.
Absolutely, and Merry Christmas to you as well.
Got it. That's Vinny Bonsignore. Appreciate Vinny coming in here. And here's our promo coming up on our channel right here on Raider Nation Radio, The Morning Tailgate, The Rich Eisen Show. My shows every day from noon to 2. And then we have Q Myers, who comes up every day from 2 to 5 p.m. Vinny does an amazing job. Catch all his work at Vegas Nation, everything he does on our radio channel, and one of the best sports writers you'll see in the country here, no doubt about that. That was a festive holiday hour here, right? Everybody enjoy the holiday. Have some fun. We appreciate everybody on Raiders Rundown that subscribes to the Raiders YouTube channel, follows me, because I'm going now live on my Raw feed, where you can find me at JT the Brick YT on YouTube. I put that up there every day. And I want to thank everybody and wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I got a bunch of radio this week, so you'll be able to find me on all my platforms. But for everyone at Silver and Black Productions, we appreciate everybody being in here, because what this group does, and especially the group I work with today, they do an unbelievable job. A lot of young members of the Raider Nation and Silver and Black Production who do just a great job, and they do a great job every week, trying to bring you the best highlights and B-roll and sound bites and access in and around this organization. And the organization cooperates pretty good. We're one of the only shows in America in the NFL that has access to a head coach every week, the opportunity to talk to players in the building, and then turn it around quickly in real time and get it to you on all forms of content at Raiders.com. So I'm fired up. Our Raiders won the game. Raider Nation, I'll get you through anything, a win or a loss, and we'll continue on. Coming up next, check out my show again. I got a couple other guests, including Levi Edwards, who will join us. So we'll jump in and do that again on radio only and on my YouTube channel. For everyone at Silver and Black Productions, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. If I don't talk to you before the end of the year, Happy New Year. And thanks for always joining us on Raiders Rundown.